Get your filthy hands off her! The security baton cracked across Marcus Thompson's back. He gasped. Pain exploded through his spine, but he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Beneath his hands, Victoria Sterling, Billionaire CEO, the most powerful woman in Atlanta, wasn't breathing. Her lips were turning blue. Marcus pressed his mouth to hers, breathed, pressed her chest, counted. Another blow. His shoulder this time. I said get off. He kept going. 1 breath. 2, 3 compressions. 4. Then her chest jerked. She coughed. She lived. Marcus saved a billionaire's life that night. They called it assault. But here's what nobody knew: someone in that room wanted her dead. And Marcus had just ruined everything. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Marcus Thompson had been mopping the same hallway for 4 years, and not a single person in that building knew his name. Not the executives who stepped over his wet floors without looking down. Not the guests who walked past him like he was furniture. Not even the security guards who nodded at him every night, but never once asked how he was doing. He was invisible, and most nights that was fine by him. Tonight was different. Tonight the Sterling Grand Hotel was hosting its annual investor gala on the penthouse floor. Black ties, evening gowns, champagne that cost more than Marcus made in a week. The kind of event where people laughed too loud at jokes that weren't funny and shook hands with folks they'd stab in the back by Monday morning. Marcus wasn't supposed to be anywhere near that floor. His shift was the basement and the service corridors. The places nobody saw. The places nobody wanted to see. But Jimmy, the night janitor for floors 15 through 20, had called in sick, and Marcus needed the overtime. You sure you want this shift? His supervisor had asked. Those penthouse folks, they don't like seeing people like us. People like us. His supervisor just looked at him. Didn't need to say more. Marcus took the shift anyway. Destiny needed new shoes. Her old ones had holes in the soles and winter was coming. A father does what a father has to do. At 9:47 p.m., Marcus was pushing his cart through the service corridor behind the main ballroom when he heard the first scream. He stopped, listened. More screaming, then shouting, then chaos. Marcus moved toward the noise. He knew he shouldn't. He knew the rules. Stay invisible. Stay out of the way. Don't make problems for yourself. But something in that scream made his blood run cold. He pushed through the service door and stepped into the back of the ballroom. What he saw made his heart stop. A woman was on the floor, surrounded by people in expensive suits. Nobody was helping her. They were just standing there, staring, frozen. Call 911, someone shouted. Is she breathing? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Don't touch her. Don't touch her. Marcus pushed forward. He recognized her immediately. Victoria Sterling. Her face was on every billboard in the city. Her name was on this building. She was the most powerful woman in Atlanta, maybe in the whole Southeast. And she was dying. Her lips were blue. Her chest wasn't moving. Her eyes were open but seeing nothing. Marcus had seen death before, his wife 3 years ago. Cancer took her slow, but in those final moments the look in her eyes was exactly like this, the look of someone slipping away. He dropped to his knees beside her. Hey. A man in a gray suit grabbed his shoulder. What the hell do you think you're doing? She's not breathing, Marcus said. I'm CPR certified. Move. You're the janitor. You can't. I said move. The man stumbled backward. Marcus didn't wait. He tilted Victoria's head back, checked her airway, pinched her nose. Someone call 911 now, he shouted. Then he leaned down and breathed into her mouth. The room erupted. What is he doing? Is he kissing her? Get him off! Get him off her! Marcus heard them, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. In his mind, he was back in that community center 3 years ago, sitting in a folding chair learning CPR just to get a free meal voucher for him and Destiny. The instructor's voice echoed in his head. If they're not breathing, you are their lungs. If their heart's not beating, you are their heart. You don't stop until help arrives, or until you physically can't continue. He breathed into Victoria's mouth, once, twice. Then he laced his fingers together, placed his palms on her chest, and started compressions. 1, 2, 3, 4. A hand grabbed his collar and yanked him backward. "Get your filthy hands off her!" Marcus recognized the voice. Richard Caldwell, Vice President of Operations, the man who never looked at Marcus, the man who walked past him every single night like he didn't exist. Now Richard was looking at him, and his eyes were filled with something Marcus had never seen before: fear. "Sir, she's in cardiac arrest," Marcus said, pulling free. "If I don't continue CPR, she will die." "I don't care. You're not touching her security." Marcus turned back to Victoria. Her lips were still blue. Her chest was still. He made his choice. He kept going. 15, 16, 17. The first blow caught him across the back. A security baton. The pain was blinding. Marcus grunted but didn't stop. 18, 19, 20. Another blow. His shoulder this time. Something cracked. He gasped. "Stop! You're going to kill her!" Richard screamed. "She's already dying," Marcus shouted back. "I'm the only one trying to save her." He leaned down, breathed into her mouth again. Her chest rose, fell, nothing. He went back to compressions. 25, 26, 27. Someone kicked him in the ribs. He doubled over but forced himself back up. 28, 29, 30. 2 more breaths. Come on, come on, come on. Richard Caldwell watched the janitor work, and his mind was racing. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this. Not tonight. The defibrillator. The one that was supposed to be in the emergency cabinet on this floor. The one Richard had removed 6 months ago to cut costs. The one that could have saved Victoria's life in 30 seconds. If she died, there would be an investigation. They would find out about the missing equipment. They would find out about the budget cuts. They would find out about everything. Richard needed her to live. But he also needed this janitor gone. No witnesses, no heroes, just a tragic accident and a miraculous recovery by the paramedics. "Get him out of here," Richard ordered. "Now." 2 security guards grabbed Marcus by the arms and pulled. "No!" Marcus fought, kicked, struggled. "She's going to die. Let me finish." He broke free, threw himself back onto Victoria, pressed his hands to her chest. "Don't you quit on me," he whispered. "Don't you dare quit on me." He compressed, breathed, compressed, breathed. And then Victoria's chest jerked. She coughed, hard, violent, her whole body convulsed. Then she sucked in air like someone being pulled from the bottom of the ocean. Her eyes fluttered, focused, looked directly at Marcus. "Who?" she whispered. "Who are you?" Marcus collapsed beside her. His back was screaming. His shoulder was probably broken. His ribs felt like they were on fire, but she was breathing. She was alive. "My name is Marcus," he said. "You're gonna be okay." The paramedics arrived 7 minutes later. By then, Richard Caldwell had already made 3 phone calls. The first was to Victoria's assistant. "Tell the press it was a minor incident. She fainted from exhaustion. Nothing serious." The second was to the head of security. "I want all footage from tonight locked down. Nobody sees it without my approval." The third was to someone whose name he never spoke aloud. "We have a problem. I need it handled." When the paramedics loaded Victoria onto the stretcher, one of them turned to the crowd. "Who started CPR?" Marcus raised his hand. "I did." The paramedic nodded. "You saved her life. Another minute or 2 without oxygen, and she would have had permanent brain damage. Or worse." Richard stepped forward before anyone could respond. "Thank you for your assessment," he said smoothly. "We'll take it from here." He turned to Marcus. His eyes were cold, empty, like looking into a window with no one behind it. What's your name? Marcus Thompson, night shift custodial. Mr. Thompson. Richard's voice dripped with something that might have been politeness, but felt like poison. I'm going to need you to come with security. There are some questions about what happened here tonight. Questions? Marcus frowned. I just saved her life. That remains to be determined. Two security guards appeared at Marcus's sides, not grabbing him, not yet, but close enough that the message was clear. Sir, I didn't do anything wrong, Marcus said. Then you have nothing to worry about. Richard smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Security will escort you to the HR office. Someone will be with you shortly. Marcus looked around the room. At the executives in their expensive suits. At the investors clutching their champagne glasses. At the women in their evening gowns looking at him like he was something they'd found on the bottom of their shoe. Nobody spoke up for him. Nobody said, wait, or he saved her, or what are you doing? They just watched. Silent. Complicit. Marcus straightened his back. Ignored the pain shooting through his body. Fine, he said. Let's go. As he walked toward the door, he passed the stretcher where Victoria was being prepped for transport. Her eyes were closed now, but her chest was rising and falling steadily. He paused, just for a moment. Take care of yourself, ma'am, he said quietly. You got a second chance. Don't waste it. Then the security guards led him away. The HR office was small and cold. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Marcus sat in a hard plastic chair, his back throbbing his shoulder, screaming his ribs aching with every breath. 2 hours passed. Nobody came. He tried calling Destiny. No answer. She was probably asleep. Mrs. Patterson, the elderly woman next door who watched her on night shifts, was probably asleep too. He texted instead. Running late. Everything okay? Love you, baby girl. Another hour passed. Finally, the door opened. A woman in a sharp black suit walked in. She didn't introduce herself, didn't shake his hand, didn't even look at him as she sat down across the table. Mr. Thompson, she said, opening a folder. I'm going to ask you some questions. I need you to answer honestly. I've been answering honestly for 3 hours, Marcus said. When can I go home to my daughter? Soon. She clicked her pen. Tell me exactly what happened tonight. Marcus told her. Everything. The scream, the crowd, Victoria on the floor, the CPR. The beating he took while trying to save her. The woman wrote nothing down. And at any point, she said when he finished, did you touch Mrs. Sterling in any way that was not related to medical assistance? Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. Excuse me. Did you touch her inappropriately? I performed CPR. I breathed into her mouth. I compressed her chest. That's it. So you did put your mouth on hers. That's how rescue breathing works. And you did put your hands on her chest. That's how chest compressions work. The woman finally looked up. Her eyes were flat, unreadable. Mr. Thompson, there are allegations that your contact with Mrs. Sterling went beyond medical necessity. Allegations from who? That's not your concern. Not my... Marcus leaned forward. Ma'am, I saved that woman's life. I have bruises on my back from getting beaten while I was doing it. You can check the security footage. The footage is under review. Then review it. It'll show exactly what happened. The woman closed her folder. Mr. Thompson, you're being placed on administrative leave pending investigation. You'll be contacted when we need further information. Administrative leave for saving someone's life. For alleged inappropriate conduct involving a senior executive. Marcus stood up. The chair scraped against the floor. This is wrong, he said. You know this is wrong. Security will escort you out. The woman pressed a button on her phone. Please surrender your badge and keys. I want to see the footage. I have a right. You have no rights here, Mr. Thompson. You're an at-will employee. Now please, your badge." Marcus stared at her for a long moment. Then he unclipped his badge, set it on the table, dropped his keys beside it. "You know what I think," he said quietly. "I think someone in this building is very scared of the truth, and I think you know exactly who that someone is." The woman said nothing. Marcus walked out. The bus ride home felt longer than usual. Marcus sat in the back, slumped against the window, watching the city lights blur past. His body ached, his mind raced, and something that felt a lot like despair was settling into his chest. He'd done the right thing, he knew that. When everyone else froze, he acted. When everyone else watched a woman die, he fought to bring her back. And now he was being punished for it. His phone buzzed. A text from a coworker. "Yo, Marcus, heard what happened. You okay?" Then another. "Bro, there's a video going around. Someone recorded part of it on their phone." Then another. "People are saying you assaulted her. WTF." Marcus closed his eyes. This is how it starts, he thought. This is how they bury you. By the time he got home, it was almost 4 a.m. Mrs. Patterson was asleep on the couch, the TV still glowing with some late-night infomercial. Destiny was in her room, curled up with her stuffed elephant, breathing softly. Marcus stood in her doorway for a long time, just watching her sleep. She was 7 years old. She'd already lost her mother. She didn't deserve to lose anything else. "I'm gonna fix this baby," he whispered. "I promise. Daddy's gonna fix this." He closed her door gently, walked to the kitchen, sat down at the small table where they ate breakfast every morning, and for the first time since his wife died, Marcus Thompson put his head in his hands and cried. Across the city, in a penthouse suite at Atlanta General Hospital, Victoria. Sterling opened her eyes. The room was white, sterile. Beeping machines surrounded her bed. An IV dripped steadily into her arm. "You're awake." A doctor appeared at her side. "How do you feel?" "Like someone parked a truck on my chest," Victoria murmured. "What happened?" "Sudden cardiac arrest. You're very lucky to be alive, Mrs. Sterling. Someone performed CPR on you immediately after you collapsed. Without that intervention, you likely would have died or suffered severe brain damage." Victoria frowned. Fragments of memory floated through her mind. The ballroom, the lights, falling. Then, nothing. Just darkness. Cold. Empty. And a voice. A man's voice. Rough. Desperate. Steady. "Don't you quit on me. Don't you dare quit on me." "Who?" she asked. "Who saved me?" The doctor hesitated. "I believe it was a staff member at the hotel. But you'd have to ask your people for details. They were handling things when you were brought in." Victoria nodded slowly. Her chest hurt. Her head hurt. Everything hurt. But she was alive. Someone had saved her life, and she didn't even know his name. The next morning, Richard Caldwell arrived at Victoria's hospital room with flowers, a tablet, and a carefully prepared story. "Victoria." He set the flowers on her bedside table. "Thank God you're okay. We were all so worried." "Richard." Victoria's voice was weak but sharp. "What happened last night?" "The doctor said someone performed CPR." "Who was it?" Richard's smile flickered for just a moment. "The paramedics responded very quickly. They were the ones who—" "No." Victoria shook her head. "Someone was there before the paramedics. Someone kept me alive until they arrived." "Who was it?" Richard sat down in the chair beside her bed. He leaned forward, his expression shifting to something that looked like concern but felt like calculation. "Victoria, I need to tell you something, and I need you to stay calm." "Richard, just tell me." "One of the custodial staff. He got to you before anyone else. He claims he was performing CPR, but—" Richard paused. "Let the silence do its work. There are concerns about the nature of his contact with you." Victoria stared at him. "What kind of concerns?" "Witnesses say he was aggressive, forceful. He put his mouth on yours, put his hands on your chest. Some people felt it was inappropriate." "He was performing CPR, Richard. That's how CPR works." "I understand. But given your position, given the optics, we felt it was best to handle the situation quietly." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Handle it how?" "He's been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The footage is being reviewed. If everything checks out, he'll be—" "Show me the footage." "Victoria, you need to rest. The doctors said—" "Show me the footage." Richard hesitated. Then he pulled out his tablet, tapped a few buttons, handed it to her. Victoria watched. She saw herself collapse, saw the crowd freeze, saw a man in a janitor's uniform push through the door, saw him drop to his knees beside her, saw him fight to keep her alive while people screamed at him, grabbed him, hit him. And she saw Richard Caldwell, standing in the background, watching, doing nothing. She looked up at him. Her eyes were ice. "Get out." "Victoria." "I said get out." Richard stood. His mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and ugly underneath. "Be careful, Victoria," he said quietly. "You don't know the whole story, and some stories are better left untold." He walked out. Victoria looked back at the tablet, at the frozen image of Marcus Thompson, his hands on her chest, his face twisted with desperate determination. This man had saved her life, and she had let her company destroy him. She pressed the call button beside her bed. "Get me Fiona," she said. "Now." 12 hours later, Marcus Thompson's phone rang. He was sitting at his kitchen table staring at a bowl of cereal he couldn't eat, trying to figure out how to tell his daughter that Daddy might not have a job anymore. The number was unknown. He almost didn't answer. "Hello, Mr. Thompson," a woman's voice, crisp, professional. "My name is Fiona Chen. I'm calling on behalf of Victoria Sterling." Marcus felt his heart stop. "I didn't do anything wrong," he said immediately. "Whatever they told you, I was just trying to—" "Mr. Thompson." Fiona's voice softened. "Mrs. Sterling watched the footage. All of it. She knows exactly what you did." Marcus closed his eyes. And she would like to meet with you, personally, as soon as possible." "Meet with me? Why?" "Because she wants to thank the man who saved her life, and because she has some questions about what happened that night. Questions that certain people in her organization have been trying very hard to avoid." Marcus was silent for a long moment. "Mr. Thompson, are you still there?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "I'm here. A car will pick you up tomorrow morning at 9. Is that acceptable?" Marcus looked at Destiny's closed bedroom door, thought about the bills piling up on the counter, thought about the job he'd probably already lost, thought about the truth that nobody seemed to want to hear. "Yeah," he said, "that's acceptable." He hung up the phone. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Marcus Thompson felt something he'd almost forgotten. The black car arrived at exactly 9 o'clock. Marcus watched it pull up from his kitchen window, a sleek Mercedes, with tinted windows that looked completely out of place on his street. Mrs. Patterson stood behind him, her arms crossed, worry etched deep into her face. "You sure about this?" she asked. "No," Marcus admitted, "but I don't have a choice." Destiny tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, where are you going?" He knelt down to her level and took her small hands in his. "Daddy has to go talk to some people about work. I'll be back soon, okay?" "Is it about the lady you saved?" Marcus felt his chest tighten. "How do you know about that?" "I heard Mrs. Patterson talking on the phone." Destiny's eyes were wide and serious. "She said you're a hero, but bad people are being mean to you." Marcus looked up at Mrs. Patterson, who suddenly found something very interesting on the ceiling. "Baby," Marcus said softly. "Sometimes when you do the right thing, not everyone sees it that way. But that doesn't mean you stop doing the right thing. You understand?" Destiny nodded slowly. "Like when I shared my lunch with Tyler and the teacher said I wasn't supposed to leave my seat, exactly like that." She threw her arms around his neck. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby girl, more than anything in this world." The car horn honked once, polite but insistent. Marcus kissed Destiny's forehead, stood up, and walked out the door. The driver didn't speak, didn't even look at Marcus through the rearview mirror. The car glided through the city like a ghost moving from Marcus's crumbling neighborhood into the gleaming towers of Midtown Atlanta. The contrast was brutal. One world full of check-cashing stores and boarded-up windows, the other full of glass and steel and people who'd never once worried about making rent. 30 minutes later, the car stopped in front of a private medical building. Not a hospital. Something smaller, more exclusive. The kind of place where billionaires went when they didn't want to be seen. A woman was waiting at the entrance. Asian, sharp suit, expression that gave away nothing. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Fiona Chen. We spoke on the phone." Marcus shook her hand. "Is this where she is? Mrs. Sterling?" "She was discharged from the main hospital this morning. Her doctors wanted her to stay longer, but—" Fiona paused, something flickering in her eyes. "Mrs. Sterling isn't known for following orders." "I can respect that." Fiona led him through a series of corridors, each one quieter than the last. Finally, she stopped outside a door. "Mr. Thompson, before you go in, I need you to understand something. Mrs. Sterling is still recovering. She's weak, and she's angry. Not at you. At the people who tried to bury what you did." Fiona looked at him directly. She's been running this company for 15 years. She's never once been lied to by her own people. Until now. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because when you walk through that door, you're walking into a war. And you need to decide which side you're on." Marcus held her gaze. "I'm on the side of the truth. Always have been." Fiona nodded slowly. Then she opened the door. Victoria Sterling was sitting up in bed wearing a simple gray sweater instead of a hospital gown. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup, no jewelry. She looked smaller than she did on the billboards, more human, but her eyes were sharp as broken glass. "Mr. Thompson," she said, "please, sit down." Marcus sat in the chair beside her bed. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Victoria said, "I watched you die." Marcus frowned. "Ma'am?" "On the footage. I watched myself die. I saw my body on that floor, not moving, not breathing. I saw everyone around me frozen like statues." Her voice cracked slightly. "And then I saw you, pushing through the crowd, dropping to your knees, fighting to bring me back while they beat you for it." She turned to look at him, and Marcus saw something he didn't expect. Tears. "You saved my life," Victoria said. "And my company tried to destroy yours. I need you to understand I didn't know. I didn't authorize any of it. I woke up in that hospital bed, and they told me you'd been handled. Like you were a problem to be solved." "I know," Marcus said quietly. "How can you know? How can you possibly? Because if you'd wanted me gone, I'd already be gone. You're Victoria Sterling. You could have made me disappear with one phone call. Instead, you brought me here." Marcus leaned forward. "You want the truth. Same as me." Victoria wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, a gesture that seemed almost foreign to her, like she'd forgotten how to show weakness. "Tell me everything," she said. "From the beginning. Don't leave anything out." So Marcus told her. He told her about Jimmy calling in sick, about taking the extra shift for the overtime, about hearing the scream and running toward it instead of away. He told her about the CPR, about the blows to his back, about Richard Caldwell screaming at him to stop, about the hours in the HR office, about the accusations, about being escorted out like a criminal. When he finished, Victoria was silent for a long time. "Richard," she finally said. "Richard Caldwell." He was the one giving orders that night. He's the one who wanted me gone. "Why? What possible reason?" Victoria stopped. Her expression shifted, something clicking into place behind her eyes. "The defibrillator." "Ma'am, every floor of my hotels is required to have an automated defibrillator. It's company policy. I instituted it myself after my father died of a heart attack." Victoria's jaw tightened. If there had been a defibrillator on that floor, anyone could have used it. The machine does the work. You just attach the pads and press a button. "There wasn't one," Marcus said. "I looked. When I was doing compressions, I kept hoping someone would bring one. Nobody did. Because there wasn't one to bring." Victoria reached for her phone on the bedside table. "Fiona?" The door opened immediately. "Yes, Mrs. Sterling. I want a full audit of every safety expenditure Richard Caldwell has approved in the last 2 years. Every budget cut, every deferred maintenance request, everything. That's going to take time, and Mr. Caldwell has a lot of allies on the board." "I don't care about the board. I care about the truth. Get it done." Fiona nodded and disappeared. Victoria turned back to Marcus. "Mr. Thompson, I owe you more than I can ever repay. You saved my life, and in return my people tried to ruin yours. I intend to make this right." "How?" "First, I'm going to clear your name, publicly. I'll hold a press conference, show the real footage, tell everyone exactly what happened." Marcus shook his head slowly. "With respect, Mrs. Sterling, that's not going to be enough." "What do you mean?" "I mean they've already started the smear campaign. I've seen the posts online, the edited videos, the rumors." Marcus's voice was steady, but his hands were trembling. "By the time you hold your press conference, half the city is going to think I'm some kind of predator who attacked you. You can tell them the truth, but people believe what they want to believe." Victoria studied him. "Then, what do you want?" "I want to know why. I want to know why Richard Caldwell was so desperate to get rid of me that he was willing to let you die." Marcus leaned forward. "Because I've been thinking about it all night, and something doesn't add up. He wasn't just trying to cover up a missing defibrillator. He was scared. I saw it in his eyes. He was terrified." "Terrified of what?" "That's what I want to find out." Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. It was small and tired, but it was real. "You know what, Mr. Thompson, I think I underestimated you." "Most people do." "Their mistake." Victoria extended her hand. "I'm going to find out what Richard is hiding. And when I do, I'm going to need someone I can trust. Someone who isn't afraid to stand up to power. Someone who's already proven they'll do the right thing, even when it costs them everything." Marcus looked at her hand, then he took it. "I'm just a janitor, Mrs. Sterling." "No," Victoria said firmly. "You're the man who saved my life. And right now, that makes you the only person in my entire organization I know for certain isn't lying to me." The drive home should have felt triumphant. Marcus had just met with one of the most powerful women in America. She believed him. She was going to help him. But as the Mercedes glided back through the city, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You should have stayed invisible." He stared at the message, his blood running cold. Another buzz. Another message. "We know where you live. We know about your daughter. Walk away now and no one gets hurt." Marcus's hands were shaking as he typed back, "Who is this?" The response came immediately. "A friend. The only one you've got. Take the severance. Sign the NDA. Disappear. Last warning." Marcus deleted the messages. Then he called Mrs. Patterson. "Is Destiny okay?" "She's fine, Marcus. Playing in her room." "Why? What's wrong? Nothing. Just don't let anyone in. Anyone. You understand? Don't open the door for anyone except me. Marcus, you're scaring me. I know, I'm sorry. I'll explain when I get home. Just keep her safe. He hung up and stared out the window at the passing city. Richard Caldwell wasn't just trying to cover up budget cuts. He was trying to cover up something much, much bigger. And now, Marcus was in the middle of it. When Marcus got home, there was a man standing on his porch. Not Richard Caldwell. Someone else. Tall. Broad shoulders. Cheap suit that didn't quite fit right. He had the look of someone who'd been in law enforcement at some point, but had found more profitable work elsewhere. Marcus approached slowly. Can I help you? The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Thompson, my name is Derek Vance. I'm an investigator working on behalf of Sterling Hospitality Group. I already talked to HR. This isn't about HR. Vance pulled a small notepad from his pocket. I'm conducting a private investigation into the events of 2 nights ago. Just a few questions if you don't mind. And if I do mind. Vance's smile widened. Then I might have to start asking questions to other people. Your neighbors, your daughter's school, your ex-wife's family. He shrugged casually. Just trying to get a complete picture, you understand. Marcus felt something hot and dangerous rise in his chest. Are you threatening me? I'm just doing my job, Mr. Thompson. Same as you were doing yours. Vance flipped open his notepad. Now, let's start from the beginning. What were you doing on the penthouse floor the night of the incident? I already told HR everything. Tell me again. Marcus took a deep breath, controlled his anger, told the story again. The same story. The true story. Vance wrote nothing down. When Marcus finished, Vance nodded slowly. Interesting. Very interesting. See, I talked to a few witnesses this morning, and they have a very different recollection of events. Different how? They say you were agitated, aggressive, that you pushed past security to get to Mrs. Sterling, that you were touching her inappropriately before anyone could stop you. That's a lie. Is it? Vance tilted his head. See, that's the thing about truth, Mr. Thompson. It's subjective. 10 people can witness the same event and walk away with 10 different stories. What matters isn't what happened. It's what people believe happened. The security footage is being reviewed. Vance smiled again. These things take time. Technical issues. Chain of custody concerns. You know how it is. Mrs. Sterling watched the footage this morning. She knows what really happened. Something flickered in Vance's eyes. Surprise. Just for a second. Is that so? Yes. And she's going to clear my name publicly. Vance was quiet for a moment. Then he tucked his notepad back into his pocket. Mr. Thompson, let me give you some advice. Free of charge. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're a janitor, a single father living in a neighborhood that most people in this city try to pretend doesn't exist. You have no money, no connections, no power. Victoria Sterling has all 3. Right now, she's grateful to you, but gratitude fades. And when it does, you'll be exactly where you started, alone, invisible. Except this time, you'll have made some very powerful enemies. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. This is a settlement offer. $50,000. You sign a non-disclosure agreement, you agree never to speak about that night publicly, and this all goes away. You can find a new job. Take care of your daughter. Move on with your life. Marcus looked at the envelope. $50,000. More money than he'd ever seen at one time. Enough to pay off his debts, get Destiny into a better school, maybe even move out of this neighborhood. All he had to do was stay silent. All he had to do was let them bury the truth. He thought about Victoria Sterling's eyes when she thanked him. He thought about the terror in Richard Caldwell's face. He thought about the anonymous text messages. He thought about his wife, 3 years gone, who always told him that a man's character is defined by what he does when no one is watching. "No," Marcus said. Vance blinked. "Excuse me." "I said no." Marcus pushed the envelope back toward him. "I'm not signing anything. I'm not staying quiet. And I'm not going anywhere." Vance's friendly mask slipped away, revealing something cold underneath. "You're making a mistake, Mr. Thompson." "Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Think about your daughter." Marcus stepped forward, his voice dropping to something low and dangerous. "I am thinking about my daughter. I'm thinking about what kind of man I want her to see when she looks at her father. I'm thinking about the lessons I want to teach her about truth and justice and standing up for what's right." He met Vance's eyes without flinching. "I'm not for sale. Now get off my property." Vance held his gaze for a long moment. Then he smiled that empty smile one more time. "Your choice, Mr. Thompson. Remember that. Whatever happens next, you chose it." He walked away without looking back. Marcus watched him go, his heart pounding in his chest. Whatever happens next. He had a feeling he was about to find out. 3 days passed. 3 days of waiting. 3 days of jumping every time his phone buzzed. 3 days of watching the street through his kitchen window looking for black cars or men in cheap suits. Victoria had gone quiet. Fiona told Marcus that she was working on the audit gathering evidence building a case against Richard Caldwell. But these things took time, and time was something Marcus was running out of. The money was gone. His last paycheck had covered rent, but just barely. The electricity was threatening to be cut off. Destiny needed new winter clothes. The refrigerator was almost empty. On the 4th day, Marcus swallowed his pride and walked into the unemployment office. The line wrapped around the building. Dozens of people just like him. Tired faces, worn clothes, the weight of desperation hanging in the air like fog. He waited for 3 hours. When he finally got to the front of the line, the woman behind the counter barely looked at him. "Name, Marcus Thompson." She typed something into her computer. Frowned. "Mr. Thompson, it says here you were terminated for cause. That makes you ineligible for unemployment benefits." Marcus felt the floor drop out from under him. "Terminated for cause I was put on administrative leave. Nobody told me I was—" "It's in the system, sir. If you want to dispute it, you'll need to file an appeal. The process takes 6 to 8 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks? I have a daughter. I can't—" "I understand, sir. But there's nothing I can do. Next." Marcus stood frozen as the people behind him pushed forward. He walked out of the building in a daze. Terminated for cause. They hadn't just fired him. They had made sure he couldn't collect unemployment. Made sure he'd have no income, no safety net, nothing. This wasn't just a cover-up anymore. This was war. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered it anyway. "Marcus Thompson." A woman's voice, not Fiona, someone younger. "Who's asking?" "My name is Aaliyah Carter. I'm a journalist with the Atlanta Independent. I've been investigating labor practices at Sterling Hospitality for the past 6 months, and I recently came across some very interesting information about an incident at the Sterling Grand Hotel. I was hoping you might be willing to talk." Marcus looked around the parking lot, lowered his voice. "How did you get this number?" "I have sources, Mr. Thompson. I know what happened that night, not the company's version, the real version, and I know what they're doing to you right now. The termination, the smear campaign, the settlement offers." She paused. "I can help you, but only if you're willing to help me." "Help you how?" "I need someone on the inside, someone who knows how these people operate, someone who isn't afraid to tell the truth even when powerful people are trying to bury it." Marcus was silent for a long moment. "Mr. Thompson, are you still there?" "Yeah," he said finally. "I'm here. Where do you want to meet?" They met at a coffee shop in East Atlanta. Aaliyah Carter was young, maybe late 20s, with natural hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. She had a laptop open in front of her and a notebook filled with cramped handwriting. "Thank you for coming," she said as Marcus sat down. "Thank me after I hear what you have to say." Aaliyah turned her laptop toward him. On the screen was a spreadsheet filled with numbers. 6 months ago, I started investigating complaints from workers at Sterling hotels. Unpaid overtime, unsafe conditions, retaliation against employees who filed complaints. Standard corporate stuff, but the pattern was too consistent to ignore. Every single complaint traced back to cost-cutting measures approved by one person. She pointed at a name on the screen. Richard Caldwell. "I already know Caldwell is dirty." "But you don't know how dirty." Aaliyah pulled up another document. 3 years ago, a housekeeper at the Sterling Grand fell down a service stairwell. The railing had been flagged for repair 6 months earlier, but the work order was never approved. She broke her spine. She's in a wheelchair now. Settlement was paid out, NDA signed, incident buried. She pulled up another document. 2 years ago, a cook at the Sterling Buckhead suffered severe burns when a faulty oven exploded. Equipment had been scheduled for replacement, but the budget was reallocated. Settlement paid, NDA signed, incident buried. Another document. 18 months ago, a security guard at the Sterling Midtown had a heart attack during his shift. No defibrillator on the floor. He died before the ambulance arrived. Family was paid off. No media coverage. Nothing. Marcus stared at the screen. How many? At least a dozen incidents over the past 3 years. All of them connected to cost-cutting measures approved by Richard Caldwell. All of them buried with settlements and NDAs. Aaliyah leaned forward. Victoria Sterling instituted strict safety protocols when she took over the company. Caldwell has been systematically dismantling them to boost short-term profits. And every time someone gets hurt, he pays them off and makes the problem disappear. Until me. Until you. Aaliyah nodded. You're the first person who refused to take the money. And more importantly, you saved the one person who actually has the power to stop him. If Victoria Sterling finds out what Caldwell's been doing, he's finished. That's why he's coming after you so hard. You're not just a witness. You're the key to bringing down his entire operation. Marcus sat back in his chair, his mind racing. Why are you telling me this? Why not just go to Victoria yourself? Because I'm a journalist. Victoria Sterling's lawyers would have me tied up in court for years before I could publish anything. But you... Aaliyah's eyes gleamed. You're a hero. You saved her life. When you talk, people listen. And more importantly, when you talk, she listens. You want me to bring this to Victoria. I want you to help me expose the truth. All of it. Not just what happened to you, but what's been happening to workers at Sterling hotels for years. People who got hurt. People who got silenced. People who deserved justice and never got it. Marcus thought about the security guard who died of a heart attack. About the housekeeper in the wheelchair. About the cook with the burns. People like him. Invisible people. People who nobody listened to. If I do this, Marcus said slowly, Caldwell is going to come after me with everything he has. He already is. It could get worse. It will get worse. Aaliyah didn't sugarcoat it. But right now, you're fighting alone. If we work together, we have a chance. A real chance. To expose the truth and protect the people who can't protect themselves. Marcus looked at the documents on the screen. At the names and dates and dollar amounts. At the human cost of one man's greed. Then he thought about Destiny. About the world she was going to grow up in. About the kind of man he wanted to be. Okay, he said. I'm in. Aaliyah smiled for the first time since they sat down. Then, let's get to work. That night, Marcus called Fiona Chen. I need to see Victoria, he said. Tomorrow. It's urgent. Mr. Thompson, Mrs. Sterling is still recovering. She's not seeing anyone who isn't. Tell her I have information about Richard Caldwell. Information that could blow this whole thing wide open. There was a pause on the other end of the line. What kind of information? The kind that explains why he was so desperate to get rid of me. The kind that involves a lot more than one missing defibrillator. Marcus took a breath. Tell her I know about the cover-ups, all of them. And I have proof. Silence. Then, I'll make the call. 20 minutes later, Fiona called back. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., same location. I'll be there. Marcus hung up and sat down at his kitchen table. His hands were shaking. Not from fear this time, from anticipation. For the first time since this nightmare began, he wasn't just surviving. He was fighting back. And tomorrow, everything was going to change. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the medical building with a folder tucked under his arm. Inside were printed copies of everything Aaliyah had shown him. The spreadsheets, the incident reports, the settlement records. 3 years of buried truths, organized and documented. Fiona met him at the entrance. She looked different today, less composed. There were shadows under her eyes and tension in her jaw. Before we go up, she said, I need to tell you something. Mrs. Sterling received a call from the board chairman this morning. They're pressuring her to drop the internal investigation. They're saying it's bad for shareholder confidence. And what did she say? Fiona almost smiled. She told him to go to hell, her exact words. Good. Mr. Thompson. Fiona stopped him with a hand on his arm. Whatever you're about to show her, it needs to be solid. Richard Caldwell has been with this company for 20 years. He has allies everywhere. Board members, department heads, people who owe their careers to him. If you're going to take him down, you need to do it in one shot. Because if you miss, he'll bury you so deep, no one will ever find you. Marcus looked at the folder in his hands. I'm not going to miss. They rode the elevator in silence. When the doors opened, Marcus was surprised to find Victoria standing fully dressed, pacing by the window. She turned when she heard them enter. Mr. Thompson, Fiona tells me you have something I need to see. Yes, ma'am. Marcus walked to the small table by her bed and spread out the documents. This is going to take a while. You might want to sit down. For the next 2 hours, Marcus walked Victoria through everything. The pattern of cost-cutting, the safety violations, the accidents, the settlements, the NDAs. He showed her the connection between each incident and Richard Caldwell's budget approvals. He showed her the timeline. He showed her the money trail. Victoria listened without interrupting. Her face grew paler with each page. By the time Marcus finished, her hands were shaking. 3 years, she said quietly. For 3 years, people have been getting hurt in my hotels. And I didn't know. You weren't supposed to know. That was the whole point. The security guard who died of a heart attack. That was 18 months ago. Yes, ma'am. There should have been a defibrillator on his floor. There should have been. Richard Caldwell cut the budget for it. Victoria closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were wet. That could have been me. If you hadn't been there that night, if you hadn't known CPR, I would have died the same way, because of the same man, because of the same budget cut. Yes, ma'am. Victoria stood up abruptly and walked to the window. She pressed her palm against the glass, staring out at the city. I built this company with my father. We started with one hotel in Savannah, one hotel, 23 employees, and a dream. Her voice cracked. He used to tell me that our business wasn't really about buildings or profits. It was about people, the guests who trusted us with their memories, the workers who trusted us with their livelihoods. He said if we ever forgot that we deserved to fail. She turned back to Marcus. I forgot. Somewhere along the way, I got so focused on growth and expansion and beating the competition that I stopped paying attention to what really mattered. I trusted Richard because the numbers looked good. I let him handle the operational details because I was too busy chasing the next acquisition. Tears streamed down her face. People got hurt because I wasn't paying attention. A man died because I wasn't paying attention. Marcus didn't know what to say. He'd spent the last week hating this company, hating everything it represented. But looking at Victoria now, he didn't see a villain. He saw a woman who had just discovered that her life's work had been corrupted from the inside. "It's not too late," he said finally. "How can you say that, after everything they did to you? Because I'm still here. Because you're still here. Because the truth is still the truth, even when powerful people try to bury it." Marcus picked up the folder. "We can still make this right. We can still get justice for the people who got hurt. But I can't do it alone. I need you to fight with me." Victoria wiped her eyes. When she looked at him again, there was something new in her expression. Something hard. Something determined. "Call Richard Caldwell," she said to Fiona. "Tell him I want to see him in my office tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock sharp." "Mrs. Sterling, are you sure you're well enough to—" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Richard Caldwell arrived at Sterling Hospitality headquarters the next morning, looking like a man who owned the world. Perfect suit, perfect hair, perfect smile. He strode through the executive floor like he belonged there, nodding to assistants and junior executives who scurried out of his way. He didn't know that Victoria had spent the entire night reviewing every document Marcus had brought her. He didn't know that she had already contacted the company's external legal counsel. He didn't know that hidden in her desk drawer was a recording device ready to capture every word he said. He walked into her office like he was doing her a favor. "Victoria, you look well. I'm glad to see you recovering so quickly." "Close the door, Richard." Something flickered in his eyes. Just for a moment. Then the smile returned. "Of course." He closed the door and sat down across from her desk. "What can I do for you?" Victoria didn't answer immediately. She just looked at him, studied him, tried to reconcile the man sitting in front of her with the monster she now knew him to be. "I've been reviewing some budget reports," she said finally, "going back the last few years, operational expenditures, safety compliance, that sort of thing. Always prudent to keep an eye on the numbers. I found some interesting discrepancies." Richard's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Discrepancies. Deferred maintenance. Canceled equipment orders. Safety certifications that lapsed and were never renewed. Victoria opened a folder on her desk. "Would you like to explain why the Sterling Grand hasn't had a functioning defibrillator on floors 15 through 20 for the past 2 years? The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. "I'm not sure what you're implying," Richard said slowly. "I'm not implying anything. I'm asking you a direct question. Why was the safety equipment on those floors never replaced after the last inspection flagged them for upgrade? Budget constraints. We had to make difficult decisions about resource allocation. You approved those budgets yourself. I approved overall operational budgets. I didn't approve specific cuts to life-saving equipment." Victoria's voice was ice. "I didn't approve leaving my employees and guests vulnerable to medical emergencies with no way to help them." Richard leaned forward, his mask of politeness starting to slip. "Victoria, I understand you've been through a traumatic experience. Perhaps you should take more time to recover before making accusations you might regret. Is that a threat? It's concern. For your well-being, and for the company's reputation." He stood up and walked to the window, his back to her. "You and I have worked together for a long time. We've built something remarkable. Let's not destroy it over a few budget line items." "A few budget line items." Victoria stood up too. "A man died, Richard. A security guard. He had a heart attack on shift, and there was no defibrillator to save him. That wasn't a budget line item. That was a human life. An unfortunate tragedy. We settled with the family. The matter was resolved." "Resolved? You paid them off and buried it. Just like you buried the housekeeper who broke her spine. Just like you buried the cook who got burned. Just like you tried to bury Marcus Thompson after he saved my life." Victoria slammed her palm on the desk. "How many people, Richard? How many people have been hurt because you decided their safety was less important than your bonus?" Richard turned slowly. His face had changed. The smooth politician was gone. In his place was something colder, harder, more dangerous. Be very careful, Victoria. You're walking into territory you don't understand. Then explain it to me. This company was bleeding money when I took over operations. You were so focused on your expansion dreams that you didn't notice the foundation crumbling beneath you. I made the hard decisions. I cut the fat. I kept this company profitable when everyone else said it would fail. He stepped closer. Every dollar I saved on maintenance, on equipment, on unnecessary safety redundancies, that money went into growth, into the acquisitions that doubled our portfolio, into the stock price that made you a billionaire. So it's my fault. Because I'm rich, the workers who got hurt don't matter. They got compensated. Their families got compensated. No one walked away empty-handed. Except the ones who can't walk at all. Except the one who didn't walk away because he died on the floor of your hotel. Richard's jaw tightened. You want to go to war with me, Victoria, fine, but understand what you're risking. I know where every skeleton is buried in this company. I know about the accounting irregularities in the Singapore acquisition. I know about the EPA violations at the Charleston property that got swept under the rug. I know about your brother's drug problem and the rehab bills that got charged to company expenses. Victoria went pale. You wouldn't. I don't want to. I've protected this company and you for 20 years. All I'm asking is that you extend me the same courtesy. He straightened his tie. The janitor is a problem that can be solved quietly. A settlement, an NDA. He disappears and this all goes away. Just like every other problem I've made disappear for you. He has a name, Marcus Thompson. And he's not a problem. He's a hero. Richard laughed. It was an ugly sound. A hero. He's a night shift janitor living in a slum raising a kid on food stamps. Heroes don't exist in the real world, Victoria. Only people with power and people without it. Marcus Thompson has no power. He never did. He never will. You're wrong. Am I? Look around you. Look at this office. Look at this building. Look at everything you've built. Richard gestured expansively. This is power. This is what matters. Not some feel-good story about a janitor who got lucky. Lucky people don't change the world. Money changes the world. Influence changes the world. And I have both. Victoria was silent for a long moment. Then she reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a small device. Do you know what this is, Richard? He froze. It's a digital recorder. It's been running since you walked through that door. Victoria's voice was steady now, cold. Every word you just said, every threat, every admission, it's all captured. And in about 30 seconds it's going to be backed up to 3 separate secure servers that you can't access. Richard's face went white. You recorded me, that's illegal. Georgia is a one-party consent state. Look it up. Victoria stood tall. You're finished, Richard. I'm going to take everything you just said, combine it with the documentation Marcus Thompson provided, and I'm going to hand it over to the State Attorney General. And then I'm going to hold a press conference and tell the world exactly what you've been doing in my company for the past 3 years. You can't. I can, and I will. Victoria pointed at the door. Get out of my office. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. You're terminated effective immediately. And if I ever see your face again, I'll have you arrested for trespassing. Richard stood frozen for a moment. His face cycled through a dozen emotions. Shock, rage, fear, calculation. Then something settled behind his eyes. Something cold and final. You're going to regret this, Victoria. You have no idea what you've just started. He walked out without another word. Victoria collapsed into her chair, her whole body shaking. She picked up her phone and dialed Marcus's number. It's done, she said when he answered. I confronted him. I have everything on tape. He's finished. Are you okay? No, but I will be. She took a deep breath. I'm holding a press conference tomorrow. I want you there. I want the world to see the man who saved my life standing next to me when I tell them the truth. I'll be there. Victoria ended the call and leaned back in her chair. For the first time in a week, she felt like she could breathe. She didn't know that across town Richard Caldwell was making phone calls of his own. Marcus was still on the phone with Aaliyah when the knock came. "Hold on," he said. "Someone's at the door." He opened it to find 2 police officers standing on his porch. Behind them in the street was a patrol car with its lights flashing. "Marcus Thompson?" the first officer asked. "Yes. What's this about?" "Sir, we have a warrant to search your residence." Marcus felt his blood go cold. "Search for what? I haven't done anything." "Sir, please step aside." "I have a daughter inside. She's 7 years old. You can't—" "Sir." The officer's hand moved to his hip. "Step aside, now." Mrs. Patterson appeared behind Marcus' Destiny, hiding behind her legs. "Marcus, what's going on?" "I don't know. Just stay with Destiny. Keep her calm. Everything's going to be okay." He stepped aside. The officers pushed past him into the apartment. For the next hour, Marcus stood in his living room watching strangers tear through his home. They opened drawers, overturned cushions, pulled books off shelves. Destiny sat on Mrs. Patterson's lap, crying softly, not understanding why these men were destroying her home. Then one of the officers emerged from Marcus's bedroom, holding a small plastic bag. "What the hell is that?" Marcus demanded. "Looks like cocaine to me." The officer held up the bag. "Found it in your dresser drawer, about 2 ounces. That's not mine. I've never touched drugs in my life. Someone planted that." "That's what they all say." The officer nodded to his partner. "Marcus Thompson, you're under arrest for possession of a controlled substance with intent to distribute." No, this is a setup. That's not mine." They grabbed his arms, pulled them behind his back. The cold metal of handcuffs bit into his wrists. "Daddy!" Destiny screamed. She tried to run to him, but Mrs. Patterson held her back. "Daddy!" "It's okay, baby. It's okay. This is a mistake. Daddy will be home soon." They dragged him toward the door. He struggled, fought, but there were too many of them. "Call Fiona Chen," he shouted to Mrs. Patterson. "Tell her what happened. Tell Victoria Sterling." Then he was outside. The neighbors were watching. People he'd known for years staring at him like he was a stranger, like he was a criminal. They shoved him into the back of the patrol car. The last thing Marcus saw before they drove away was Destiny's face in the window, screaming, crying, reaching for a father who couldn't reach back. The holding cell was cold. Gray walls, gray floor, gray bars. Marcus sat on the concrete bench, his head in his hands, trying to understand how everything had fallen apart so fast. 2 hours ago, he was planning to stand next to Victoria Sterling at a press conference. Now he was sitting in a cage, charged with a crime he didn't commit. Richard Caldwell. It had to be. This was his retaliation, his final move. If Marcus was in jail, he couldn't testify, couldn't speak at the press conference, couldn't expose the truth. The cell door clanged open. A guard appeared. "Thompson, you have a phone call." They led him to a wall-mounted phone in the corridor. Marcus picked up the receiver with trembling hands. "Hello?" "Marcus." Fiona's voice, strained, scared. "I just heard what happened. We're going to get you out. Victoria's lawyers are working on bail right now." "How long?" "A few hours, maybe tomorrow morning at the latest. Drug charges are taken seriously, but with Victoria backing you." "Fiona." Marcus cut her off. "Where's Destiny?" Silence on the other end. "Fiona." "Where is my daughter?" "Marcus." Fiona's voice broke. "Child Protective Services was called when you were arrested. They said since Mrs. Patterson isn't a legal guardian, they had to take Destiny into emergency custody." The world stopped spinning. "What?" "I'm so sorry. We're trying to find out where they took her. We're trying to—" "They took my daughter." Marcus's voice cracked. "They took my little girl. It's temporary. As soon as you're released, as soon as you can demonstrate." Marcus slammed the phone against the wall. Once, twice, 3 times. Guards rushed toward him. He didn't care. "Where is she?" he screamed. "Where's my daughter?" They tackled him, dragged him back to his cell, threw him inside and slammed the door. Marcus lay on the concrete floor, his whole body shaking, his cheek pressed against the cold ground, his hands still cuffed behind his back. Destiny, his baby girl. They had taken her, and he couldn't do anything, couldn't hold her, couldn't tell her everything would be okay, couldn't protect her from the nightmare that was swallowing them both. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time lost all meaning in that gray cell. At some point, a guard came to remove his handcuffs. Marcus didn't move. Just lay there, staring at the wall, feeling something inside him die. His phone call. They gave him one more phone call. He dialed Mrs. Patterson's number. No answer. He dialed Fiona. Voicemail. He dialed Victoria. Voicemail. Finally, he dialed the only other number he could think of. Aaliyah Carter answered on the second ring. "Marcus? Oh my God, I've been trying to reach you. I heard about the arrest. Are you okay?" "They took Destiny." "What?" "Child Protective Services. They took her when I got arrested." His voice was hollow, empty. "I don't know where she is. I don't know if she's scared or crying or if anyone is holding her. My little girl is out of there somewhere and I can't get to her." "Marcus, listen to me. We're going to fix this. Victoria's lawyers are already working on your case. The drug charges won't stick. Everyone knows this is a setup." "What if they do stick? What if I go to prison? What happens to Destiny then?" "That's not going to happen." "You don't know that. You don't know anything." Marcus pressed his forehead against the cold wall. "I should have taken the money. I should have signed the NDA. I should have kept my mouth shut and stayed invisible like I've been my whole life." "You don't mean that." "Don't I?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought if I told the truth, if I stood up for what was right, things would work out. But they don't work out. Not for people like me. The system isn't built for people like me." "Marcus." "I'm tired, Aaliyah. I'm so tired. I've been fighting my whole life, fighting to pay the bills, fighting to keep a roof over our heads, fighting to give Destiny a better life than I had. And where did it get me? Sitting in a jail cell while strangers decide what happens to my daughter." Aaliyah was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was soft but fierce. "Do you know why I became a journalist?" "No." "Because when I was 12 years old, my father was wrongfully convicted of a robbery he didn't commit. He spent 8 years in prison. 8 years. And the whole time my mother kept telling me that the truth would come out, that justice would prevail, that we just had to have faith. Did it come out? Eventually, a journalist investigated the case, found evidence that the prosecutors had hidden. My father was exonerated and released." Aaliyah's voice hardened. "But he wasn't the same. 8 years in a cage changes a person. He died 2 years after he got out. Heart attack. The doctors said it was stress-related, but I knew the truth. Prison killed him. Slowly. Piece by piece." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I know what it feels like to watch the system crush someone you love. And I know what it feels like to want to give up. To think that none of it matters. That the bad guys always win." Aaliyah took a breath. "But they don't always win, Marcus. Sometimes the truth does come out. Sometimes justice does prevail. But only if there are people willing to fight for it." Marcus closed his eyes. Destiny's face floated behind his lids. Her smile. Her laugh. The way she called him Daddy, like it was the most important word in the world. "I can't fight anymore," he whispered. "I don't have anything left." "Yes, you do. You have the truth, and you have people who believe in you." Aaliyah's voice grew urgent. "Marcus, listen to me. Richard Caldwell thinks he's won. He thinks planting those drugs and getting you arrested will shut you up forever, but he made a mistake." "What mistake?" "He overplayed his hand. The arrest. The drug charges. Taking your daughter. It's too much. It's obvious. and Victoria Sterling is not going to let it stand. Aaliyah paused. I just got off the phone with Fiona. Victoria is furious. She's not just working on your bail anymore. She's launching a full investigation into the Atlanta Police Department's connection to Richard Caldwell. She's calling in every favor she has, every contact, every ally. Why would she do that for me? Because you saved her life, and because when she looks at you, she sees something she thought she'd lost. Integrity, courage, the willingness to do what's right even when it costs everything. Aaliyah's voice softened. You're not alone, Marcus. I know it feels that way right now. But you're not. Marcus was silent for a long time. Then slowly something shifted in his chest. Not hope exactly. Not yet. But something adjacent to it. Something that felt like the first breath after drowning. What do I need to do? Right now, survive the night. Tomorrow morning, Victoria's lawyers will have you out on bail. And then we're going to finish what we started. And Destiny. We're going to get her back. I promise you, Marcus, whatever it takes. Marcus hung up the phone and walked back to his cell on his own. He lay down on the concrete bench, stared at the gray ceiling. Somewhere out there, his daughter was sleeping in a strange bed surrounded by strangers wondering where her daddy was. Hold on, baby, he thought. Daddy's coming. Just hold on a little longer. He closed his eyes and waited for morning. Morning came slowly. Gray light crept through the small window near the ceiling of Marcus's cell, painting the concrete walls in shades of ash. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Destiny's face. Her tears, her outstretched hands reaching for him as they dragged him away. The cell door clanged open. A guard stood there, keys jangling. Thompson, you made bail. Get up. Marcus rose on stiff legs. His body ached from the concrete bench. His wrists were still raw from the handcuffs, but none of that mattered. Where's my daughter? That's not my department. Get moving. They processed him out in silence, returned his wallet, his phone, his shoelaces. When he stepped through the final door into the lobby, he found Fiona Chen waiting for him. Marcus? She looked as exhausted as he felt. I have a car outside. Victoria wants to see you immediately. I need to find Destiny first. We know where she is. CPS placed her in a group home in East Point. Victoria's lawyers are already working on emergency custody transfer, but there are procedures. It's going to take a few hours. A few hours? Marcus's voice cracked. She's 7 years old. She's alone in some group home with strangers, and you're telling me it's going to take a few hours. Fiona put her hand on his arm. I know how hard this is. But if you show up at that group home right now demanding to see her, they'll call the police. You're out on bail for drug charges. Any confrontation could land you right back in that cell. She squeezed gently. Let us do this the right way. Please. Marcus wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to tear down every wall between him and his daughter with his bare hands. But he thought about what Aaliyah had said. About surviving. About fighting smart instead of fighting desperate. Fine, he said through clenched teeth. Take me to Victoria. The car ride was silent. Marcus stared out the window, watching the city blur past, his hands clenched into fists on his thighs. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your daughter cried herself to sleep last night. How does that feel? Marcus's vision went red. He almost threw the phone through the window. Instead, he typed back, When I find you, Richard, I'm going to make sure you never hurt anyone again. And the response came immediately. Big words from a man with nothing left to lose. Enjoy the press conference. It'll be the last time anyone takes you seriously. Marcus deleted the messages, forced himself to breathe. Not yet. Not now. Stay focused. Victoria was waiting in a conference room at Sterling Hospitality headquarters. She wasn't alone. Around the table sat a team of lawyers, 2 people Marcus didn't recognize, and Aaliyah Carter, who looked up when he entered and gave him a small nod. Marcus! Victoria stood up. She looked stronger than the last time he'd seen her. Still pale, still recovering, but there was steel in her spine. "I'm so sorry. I never imagined Richard would go this far. My daughter is in a group home." "I know, and I'm going to get her out." Victoria gestured to one of the lawyers. "This is James Morrison. He's the best family law attorney in the state. He's been working since 3 o'clock this morning to file emergency motions." Morrison nodded at Marcus. "Mr. Thompson, the good news is that the drug charges are transparently fraudulent. We have evidence that the arresting officers have connections to Richard Caldwell through a private security firm he partially owns. We're confident we can get the charges dismissed within 48 hours. 48 hours? Possibly sooner, depending on how cooperative the DA's office decides to be." Morrison pulled out a folder. "More importantly, we're filing for emergency custody restoration. Given the circumstances of your arrest and the evidence of conspiracy we've gathered, there's a strong case that Destiny was removed from your care as part of an orchestrated campaign of harassment." "How long?" "If the judge agrees to an emergency hearing, we could have her back by tonight." "Tonight?" Marcus closed his eyes. Tonight felt like a lifetime away. "There's something else." Victoria walked around the table to stand in front of him. "I'm holding a press conference in 2 hours. I'm going to tell the world everything. The cover-ups, the accidents, Richard's role in all of it. And I'm going to tell them about you, about what you did, about how my company tried to destroy you for saving my life." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you there, standing next to me. I want the cameras to see your face when I tell the truth." Victoria's voice softened. "But I also understand if you can't. After everything you've been through, everything you're still going through, I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to stay out of the spotlight." Marcus thought about it, about what it would mean to stand in front of cameras, to have his face broadcast across the country, to become a symbol in a fight that had already cost him so much. Then he thought about Richard Caldwell's smug smile, about the anonymous text messages, about Destiny crying herself to sleep in a stranger's bed. "I'll be there," he said. "But first I need to make a phone call." They gave him a private room. He dialed Mrs. Patterson's number. This time she answered. "Marcus." "Oh, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all night. Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" "I'm fine. How are you holding up?" "Holding up, Marcus. I watched them drag you out of your own home in handcuffs. I watched them take that sweet baby girl while she screamed for her daddy." Mrs. Patterson's voice cracked. "I've been praying all night, praying for you, praying for Destiny, praying that somehow, some way this all works out." "It will. Victoria Sterling has lawyers working on it. They're going to get Destiny back." "And what about you? Those drug charges? They were planted. Everyone knows it. We have evidence." Marcus took a breath. "Mrs. Patterson, I need you to do something for me. Anything. If I can get Destiny back today, I want to bring her home. But I don't know what state the apartment is in after the police searched it. Can you?" "I'll clean it up, top to bottom. Don't you worry about a thing." Mrs. Patterson's voice steadied. "That child is going to walk back into her home, and everything is going to be just the way she left it. I promise you." "Thank you. For everything. You've been... I don't know what I would have done without you." "Hush now. You just focus on getting through today. We'll be here when you get home." Marcus hung up. For a moment, he just stood there, phone pressed against his forehead, trying to hold himself together. A knock at the door. Aaliyah peeked in. "Hey, you okay?" "No, but I will be." "Good." She stepped inside and closed the door. "I wanted to talk to you before the press conference. There's something you should know." "What?" Richard Caldwell disappeared. Marcus felt his blood go cold. "What do you mean, disappeared?" "I mean he's gone. His house is empty. His car is gone. His assistant says he hasn't been in contact since yesterday afternoon." Aaliyah's expression was grim. "We think he's running." "Running where?" "We don't know. Victoria has people trying to track him, but he's had 24 hours to cover his tracks." She paused. There's a chance he's already out of the country. Marcus slammed his fist against the wall. So that's it. He destroys my life, takes my daughter, and he just walks away. I didn't say that. Aaliyah's eyes hardened. I've been a journalist for 10 years. I've seen a lot of bad people try to escape justice. You know what I've learned? They always slip up. They always make mistakes. And when they do, people like me are there to catch them. That's supposed to make me feel better. No, it's supposed to remind you that this isn't over. Aaliyah stepped closer. Today you're going to stand in front of the cameras and tell your story. Millions of people are going to hear what happened. And when Richard Caldwell sees his face on every news channel in America, when he realizes he can't hide, when he understands that his reputation is destroyed and his empire is crumbling, that's when he'll make a mistake. And that's when we'll get him. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. You really believe that? I have to. Otherwise, what's the point of any of this? The press conference was held in the main ballroom of Sterling Hospitality headquarters, the same room where investor galas were held, the same room where deals worth millions were negotiated over champagne and handshakes. Today, it was packed with reporters, camera crews from every major network, photographers jostling for position, the hum of voices filling the air like static electricity. Marcus stood backstage watching through a gap in the curtain. His hands were sweating. His heart was pounding. He'd faced death. He'd faced prison. But somehow this felt more terrifying than all of it. Victoria appeared beside him. She was wearing a simple black suit. No jewelry. No makeup except what was necessary. She looked like a woman preparing for battle. You ready? She asked. No. Good. Me neither. She almost smiled. But we're going to do it anyway. Mrs. Sterling, an aide appeared. They're ready for you. Victoria took a deep breath. Then she walked out onto the stage. The flashbulbs were blinding. The noise was deafening. Victoria walked to the podium, waited for the crowd to settle, and then began to speak. Thank you all for coming. I know there's been a lot of speculation over the past week about what happened at the Sterling Grand Hotel. Today I'm here to tell you the truth. All of it. She told them about the gala. About collapsing, about dying on the floor of her own hotel while her employees and guests stood frozen. I survived because of one man. His name is Marcus Thompson. He was a night shift janitor at the Sterling Grand. When everyone else froze, he acted. He performed CPR. He kept my heart beating until the paramedics arrived. Victoria's voice wavered slightly. He saved my life, and in return, my company tried to destroy his. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed. Victoria told them about the cover-up, about the accusations against Marcus, about his termination, about the smear campaign. She told them about Richard Caldwell's cost-cutting measures, about the missing defibrillators, about the accidents that had been buried with settlements and NDAs. For 3 years, people have been getting hurt in my hotels. Workers, guests, people who trusted us with their safety. And I didn't know. Victoria's voice cracked. That's not an excuse. As CEO, the responsibility is mine. I should have known. I should have paid attention. I should have protected the people who depended on me. She paused, gathered herself. Today, I'm announcing several changes. First, Richard Caldwell has been terminated from Sterling Hospitality, effective immediately. We have referred evidence of his actions to the State Attorney General and are cooperating fully with any investigation. Another murmur, louder this time. Second, I'm establishing an independent review board to audit every safety protocol in every Sterling property. Any deficiencies will be corrected immediately, regardless of cost. Third, I'm creating a new division within the company focused on employee welfare. This division will be responsible for ensuring that every worker at Sterling Hospitality is treated with dignity and respect. And I've asked Marcus Thompson to lead it. The room erupted. Questions flew from every direction. Victoria held up her hand. I know you have questions, but before I take them, I want to introduce someone. She turned toward backstage. Marcus, will you join me? Marcus stepped out from behind the curtain. The flashbulbs were overwhelming, hundreds of them all firing at once, turning the world into a strobe of white light. Marcus walked to the podium on legs that felt like water. Victoria stepped aside, giving him the microphone. For a moment, Marcus just stood there, looking at the sea of faces, the cameras, the lights. All of it focused on him. Then he thought about destiny, about the promise he'd made to himself in that jail cell, about the kind of man he wanted to be. And he began to speak. "My name is Marcus Thompson. I'm a janitor. Or at least I was until a week ago." His voice was rough, unpolished, real. "I've worked night shifts most of my adult life, cleaning floors, emptying trash, doing the jobs that nobody sees, the kind of work that makes you invisible." He paused. "A week ago, I walked into a room where a woman was dying. She was surrounded by people in expensive suits, people with money, people with power, and not one of them was doing anything to help her." Marcus looked out at the crowd. "I didn't think about who she was. I didn't think about what would happen to me. I just saw someone who needed help, and I helped. That's what my mama taught me. That's what I'm trying to teach my daughter. When someone's in trouble, you don't walk away. You step up." I performed CPR. I kept her heart beating. I got hit in the back with a baton. I got thrown out of the room, and when she woke up, instead of thanking me, they tried to destroy me. His voice hardened. "They called me a criminal. They said I assaulted her. They fired me from my job. They made sure I couldn't get unemployment. They planted drugs in my apartment and had me arrested. They took my daughter away from me." The room was completely silent now. No questions, no murmurs, just Marcus's voice echoing off the walls. "All because I saved someone's life. All because I did the right thing." Marcus looked directly into the cameras. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm not here for money. I'm here because there are people out there like me. People who work hard every day. People who do their jobs and take care of their families and try to be decent human beings. People who the system doesn't see. People who get crushed when they speak up. I'm here to tell them you matter. Your voice matters. Your life matters. And if anyone tries to tell you different, don't believe them." He stepped back from the microphone. The room exploded. Questions. Applause. More questions. Camera crews pushing forward. Reporters shouting his name. It was chaos. Beautiful, overwhelming chaos. Victoria stepped back to the podium fielding questions, but Marcus barely heard her. His phone was buzzing. He pulled it out. A text from James Morrison. "Judge granted emergency hearing. We're in court in 1 hour. Be there." Marcus grabbed Fiona's arm. "I have to go. The hearing." "I know. Cars waiting outside." He pushed through the crowd, through the lobby, through the glass doors, into the afternoon sun. A black Mercedes was idling at the curb. He jumped in. "Fulton County Courthouse," he told the driver. "Fast as you can." The courthouse was a madhouse. Word had spread about the press conference, and reporters were already gathering outside. Marcus pushed through them, ignoring the shouted questions, and made his way to the family court wing. James Morrison was waiting in the hallway. "Good news," he said. The judge reviewed the evidence. "She's inclined to grant emergency custody restoration." Inclined. There's a CPS representative in there arguing that more evaluation is needed. But I think we can overcome it. Morrison checked his watch. "We're up in 5 minutes. Just answer the questions honestly. Don't get emotional. Let me do the legal arguing." "I can't promise I won't get emotional. That's my daughter in there." "I understand. Just try to stay composed. Judges respond better to calm parents than angry ones." They walked into the courtroom. It was smaller than Marcus expected. A judge behind a raised bench, a CPS representative at one table, an empty chair that Morrison led Marcus to. "All rise." The judge was a black woman in her 60s, gray hair, sharp eyes. She looked at Marcus with an expression that gave nothing away. "Be seated." We're here on an emergency motion for custody restoration. Mr. Morrison, please proceed. Morrison laid out the case. The fraudulent arrest, the planted drugs, the connections between the arresting officers and Richard Caldwell, the evidence of conspiracy. He painted a picture of a man who had been systematically targeted for doing the right thing. The CPS representative argued back. Procedures, protocols, the need for proper evaluation, the best interests of the child. Then the judge turned to Marcus. Mr. Thompson, I've reviewed the evidence. I've heard the arguments. But I want to hear from you, in your own words. Why should I return your daughter to your custody today? Marcus stood up. His legs were shaking. His voice was steady. Your Honor, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. I've struggled. I've failed. I've had moments where I didn't know how I was going to make it through the next day. He took a breath. But everything I've ever done, every choice I've ever made has been for my daughter. She's the reason I get up in the morning. She's the reason I work double shifts. She's the reason I took a CPR class at a community center just to get a free meal voucher. When they arrested me, when they took her away, she was screaming for me. She was reaching for me, and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't hold her. I couldn't tell her it was going to be okay. His voice cracked. I don't know if I'm a hero like the news is saying. I don't know if I deserve all this attention. But I know one thing for certain, I'm a good father. I love my daughter more than anything in this world, and she needs me. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. The courtroom was silent. The judge studied him for a long moment. Then she looked down at her papers. Mr. Thompson, I've been on this bench for 22 years. I've seen a lot of parents. Some good, some bad. Some who say all the right things but don't mean any of them. She looked up. I believe you mean every word you just said. She shuffled her papers. I'm granting the emergency motion for custody restoration. Destiny Thompson is to be released to her father's care immediately. She looked at the CPS representative. Any ongoing evaluation can be conducted with the child in her home environment. Are we clear? Yes, Your Honor. The gavel came down. We're adjourned. Marcus collapsed into his chair. Morrison was shaking his hand, saying something about paperwork and follow-up. Marcus barely heard any of it. Destiny. He was getting Destiny back. An hour later, Marcus stood outside the East Point group home. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. The door opened. A social worker stepped out. Behind her, holding a small backpack, was Destiny. She looked up, saw him, and her whole face transformed. Daddy! She ran. He ran. They collided in the middle of the sidewalk, and Marcus swept her up in his arms, holding her so tight he was afraid he might break her. Daddy, I was so scared. I didn't know where you were. They said you did something bad, but I told them you didn't. I told them you're a good daddy. I told them, I know, baby, I know. Marcus was crying. Couldn't stop. Didn't want to. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm never going to let anyone take you away again. I promise. I promise. Destiny buried her face in his neck. Her small body was trembling. Can we go home now? Yeah, baby, we can go home. He carried her to the car, strapped her in, sat beside her in the back seat holding her hand the entire ride. When they pulled up to the apartment, Mrs. Patterson was waiting on the porch. She took one look at Destiny and burst into tears. Come here, sweet girl. Come here. Destiny ran to her, hugged her, then looked back at Marcus. Daddy, can we have pancakes for dinner? Marcus laughed. It came out broken and wet, but it was real. Yeah, baby, we can have pancakes for dinner. That night, after the pancakes were eaten and the dishes were washed and Destiny was tucked into her own bed, in her own room, Marcus sat on the edge of her mattress and watched her sleep. Her stuffed elephant was clutched to her chest. Her breathing was slow and steady. She looked peaceful, safe. His phone buzzed. A text from Aaliyah. Turn on the news. Marcus walked to the living room and switched on the TV. Every channel was covering the same story: Victoria Sterling's press conference, the accusations against Richard Caldwell, the footage of Marcus speaking, his face filling the screen, and then breaking news. Richard Caldwell had been arrested at the Canadian border. He was being extradited back to Georgia to face charges including conspiracy witness tampering and accessory to filing false police reports. Marcus stared at the screen. It was over. It was finally over. His phone buzzed again. This time a text from Victoria. "We got him. Thank you, Marcus, for everything." He typed back, "Thank you for believing me." Then he turned off the TV, walked back to Destiny's room, and lay down on the floor beside her bed. He didn't need a mattress, didn't need a pillow, didn't need anything except the sound of his daughter's breathing and the knowledge that she was safe. For the first time in weeks, Marcus Thompson slept without nightmares. 6 months changed everything. Marcus stood at the window of his new office, looking out at the Atlanta skyline. The morning sun was painting the buildings gold, and somewhere down below, the city was waking up. Traffic humming, people rushing to work, life moving forward the way it always did. His office was on the 12th floor of Sterling Hospitality headquarters. Not the penthouse, not the executive suite, but it had windows, real windows that let in actual light. And on his desk was a nameplate that still felt surreal every time he looked at it: Marcus Thompson, Director of Employee Welfare. 6 months ago, he'd been mopping floors and emptying trash cans in the middle of the night. 6 months ago, he'd been invisible. Now, his face had been on every news channel in America. Now, people recognized him on the street. Now, his inbox was flooded with messages from workers all over the country, telling him their stories, asking for help, thanking him for speaking up. It was overwhelming, terrifying, and somehow exactly where he was supposed to be. A knock at his door pulled him from his thoughts. "Mr. Thompson." His assistant, a young woman named Keisha, who'd been working in the mailroom before Marcus hired her, poked her head in. "Your 9 o'clock is here. Send them in." The door opened wider and a man walked in. Middle-aged, worn suit, calloused hands, the kind of hands that had done real work for a long time. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Ray Dawkins. I work maintenance at the Sterling Buckhead." Marcus walked around his desk and shook the man's hand. "Good to meet you, Ray. Please sit down. And call me Marcus." Ray sat, but he looked uncomfortable, like he wasn't sure he belonged in an office like this. Marcus recognized that look. He'd worn it himself not so long ago. "What can I do for you, Ray?" Ray hesitated, looked down at his hands. "I don't want to cause trouble. I know you're busy. I know there are probably bigger problems than..." "Ray." Marcus leaned forward. "There's no such thing as a small problem. Not to the person living it. Tell me what's going on." Ray took a breath, then he started talking. It was a familiar story. Overtime hours that weren't being paid. A supervisor who retaliated against anyone who complained. Safety equipment that hadn't been replaced in years. The kind of systemic neglect that Marcus had spent the last 6 months trying to root out. When Ray finished, Marcus pulled out a notepad. "I'm going to look into this personally. The supervisor you mentioned, what's his name?" "Gerald Franklin. But Mr. Thompson, Marcus, he's been there 15 years. He's got friends in management. If he finds out I talked to you..." "He won't find out from me. And Ray?" Marcus looked him in the eye. "What you just did coming here telling me the truth, that took courage. A lot of people wouldn't have done it." "I almost didn't. But then I saw you on TV talking about how workers matter, how our voices matter." Ray's eyes grew wet. "I've been at that hotel for 8 years. 8 years of being treated like I don't exist. And then I saw you up there and I thought, maybe things can actually change." "They can. They will." Marcus stood and offered his hand again. "Thank you for trusting me, Ray. I'm not going to let you down." After Ray left, Marcus sat at his desk for a long moment, staring at the notes he'd taken. Another case. Another wrong that needed to be righted. Another person who'd been invisible until someone finally listened. This was the job. Every day new stories, new problems, new battles to fight. And Marcus wouldn't have it any other way. The trial of Richard Caldwell began on a Tuesday in late spring. Marcus was there for opening statements. He sat in the gallery watching as the prosecutor laid out the case. Conspiracy, fraud, witness tampering, obstruction of justice. The list of charges went on and on. Richard sat at the defense table looking smaller than Marcus remembered. His expensive suit was wrinkled. His hair was graying at the temples. The confident smirk that Marcus had seen in that boardroom was gone, replaced by something hollow and desperate. The defendant systematically endangered the lives of workers and guests at Sterling Hospitality Properties, the prosecutor said. He did this to boost short-term profits, to inflate his own bonus, and to maintain his position of power. When his actions were about to be exposed, he orchestrated a campaign of harassment against the one man who could bring him down. The prosecutor pointed at Marcus. Marcus Thompson saved Victoria Sterling's life, and for that, Richard Caldwell tried to destroy him. He planted evidence. He manipulated law enforcement. He had a 7-year-old child torn from her father's arms. The prosecutor's voice hardened. This isn't just corporate misconduct. This is a systematic abuse of power by a man who believed he was above the law. Marcus listened to every word, watched as witnesses took the stand. The security guard's widow who testified about her husband's death. The housekeeper in the wheelchair who described her fall and the settlement she'd been pressured to sign. The cook with burn scars on his arms who broke down crying as he recounted the explosion. One by one, the invisible people became visible. One by one, their stories were told. And Richard Caldwell watched it all, his face growing paler with each testimony. When it was Marcus's turn to take the stand, he told the truth. All of it. The night of the gala. The CPR. The beating he took while trying to save Victoria's life. The termination. The smear campaign. The arrest. The moment they took destiny away. Mr. Thompson, the prosecutor asked, why didn't you take the settlement $50,000? All you had to do was sign an NDA and stay quiet. Why didn't you take it? Marcus looked at the jury. 12 ordinary people, workers, parents, citizens. Because my daughter was watching, he said. Maybe not right then, but she would have found out eventually. Kids always do. And I had to ask myself, what kind of man do I want her to see when she looks at her father? A man who took the money and stayed quiet. Or a man who stood up for the truth, even when it cost him everything. He paused. I chose the truth, and I'd make the same choice again. The defense attorney tried to discredit him. Brought up his background, his lack of education, the sealed juvenile record that Richard's investigator had dug up. Isn't it true, Mr. Thompson, that you have a criminal record? I was 16. I stole cough medicine for my sick mother because we couldn't afford it. The charges were dropped when the store owner heard the circumstances. Marcus met the attorney's eyes without flinching. Is that supposed to make me less credible? Because from where I'm sitting, it just means I've been fighting to survive my whole life. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty, on all counts. When the verdict was read, Marcus didn't celebrate, didn't pump his fist or shout or cry. He just sat there feeling the weight of it settle over him. Justice. Real justice. For the security guard who died. For the housekeeper who couldn't walk. For the cook who still flinched at loud noises. For everyone who'd been hurt and silenced and forgotten. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed him. Mr. Thompson, how do you feel about the verdict? Mr. Thompson, what's next for you? Mr. Thompson, do you have a message for Richard Caldwell? Marcus stopped, turned to face the cameras. I don't have a message for Richard Caldwell. He doesn't matter anymore. He looked directly into the lens. I have a message for everyone out there who's ever been told they don't matter. Everyone who's been ignored. Everyone who's been pushed down and stepped on and made to feel invisible. He took a breath. You matter. Your voice matters. And if anyone tries to silence you, don't let them. Stand up. Speak out. Tell your truth. Because the only way things change is when ordinary people refuse to stay quiet. He walked away without another word. That night, Marcus took Destiny to their favorite diner. The one with the red vinyl booths and the jukebox in the corner that still played actual records. They ordered pancakes for dinner because pancakes for dinner had become their thing ever since the night he got her back. "Daddy?" Destiny looked up from her plate syrup on her chin. What happened to the bad man? Marcus had been wondering when she'd ask. He'd tried to shield her from as much as possible, but she was smart. She heard things. She understood more than he gave her credit for. He's going to jail, baby. For a long time. Because he was mean to you. Because he hurt a lot of people. And when you hurt people, there are consequences. Destiny nodded slowly, processing this. Is he going to hurt us anymore? No. Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. He's never going to hurt us again. I promise. Good. She went back to her pancakes. Then after a moment, Daddy, are you a hero? The question caught him off guard. What? Tommy at school said you're a hero. He saw you on TV. He said you saved a lady's life and then you fought bad guys like in the movies. Marcus laughed. It came out surprised and warm. Tommy's got a big imagination. But is it true? He thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't know if I'm a hero, baby. I just did what I thought was right. Sometimes that means helping someone who's in trouble. Sometimes that means telling the truth, even when it's hard. Sometimes that means standing up for people who can't stand up for themselves. That sounds like a hero to me. Marcus smiled. Then I guess maybe I am. A little bit. I want to be a hero too, Destiny said. When I grow up. You don't have to wait until you grow up. You can start right now. How? Be kind to people, especially the ones who seem invisible. The kid at school who sits alone at lunch. The old lady who lives down the street, who never has anyone visit. The people everyone else ignores. He squeezed her hand. See them. That's how you start. Destiny's face grew serious, the way it always did when she was thinking hard about something. Okay, Daddy, I'll try. That's my girl. The Employee Welfare Division grew faster than anyone expected. Within 3 months, Marcus had a staff of 12. Within 6 months, that number had doubled. Reports flooded in from every Sterling property across the country. Workers who'd been afraid to speak up finally had somewhere to turn. Not every case was dramatic. Most weren't. They were small things. A shift supervisor who bullied his team. A maintenance request that had been ignored for months. A worker who'd been passed over for promotion because of her accent. Small things. But they mattered. Every single one of them mattered. Marcus made it a point to meet personally with as many people as he could. He traveled to properties in Miami, Chicago, Denver, Los Angeles. He sat down with housekeepers and security guards and kitchen staff. He listened to their stories. He took notes. He followed up. You know what people keep telling me? He said to Victoria during one of their weekly meetings. They say it's the first time anyone from corporate has ever actually listened to them. Victoria nodded. She looked different these days. Healthier, more present, less like a CEO and more like a person. That's because it is the first time. I'm ashamed to admit it, but before you came along I didn't even think about these things. I was so focused on the big picture that I forgot the big picture is made up of individual people. Better late than never. Is it though? Victoria's expression grew troubled. Sometimes I wonder. All those years of neglect, all those people who got hurt, can we ever really make up for it? Marcus considered the question. It was one he'd asked himself many times. I don't know if we can make up for the past, but we can change the future. We can make sure it doesn't happen again. We can build something better. He met her eyes. That's what you did when you hired me. You could have buried the truth and moved on. Instead, you chose to face it. That matters. You know you're the only person who talks to me like this. Like what? Like I'm a human being instead of a balance sheet. Victoria almost smiled. Everyone else tells me what they think I want to hear. You tell me what I need to hear. That's my job. No. Your job is employee welfare. This is something else. She paused. This is friendship. At least I hope it is. Marcus thought about everything they'd been through. The chaos, the accusations, the fight to clear his name, the long nights and hard conversations and impossible choices. Yeah, he said finally. I think it is. Mrs. Patterson turned 75 that summer. Marcus threw her a party at the apartment. Nothing fancy. Just some neighbors, some old friends from church, a cake that Destiny had helped decorate with more enthusiasm than skill. Lord have mercy, Mrs. Patterson said when she saw it. What is that supposed to be? It's you. Destiny beamed. See, those are your glasses. And that's your cane. And that blob is your cat. My cat. Mrs. Patterson squinted at the frosting. Child that looks more like a potato with legs. Everyone laughed. Even Mrs. Patterson, despite herself. Later, after the cake was eaten and the guests had gone home, Marcus sat with Mrs. Patterson on the small balcony they now had. The new apartment wasn't huge, but it was twice the size of their old place. 3 bedrooms, working heat, no leaks, no mold, a view of a small park where Destiny could play. You know, Mrs. Patterson said, when you first moved in next door, I thought you were trouble. Trouble me. Don't give me that innocent look. Young man with a baby, no wife working nights, barely making rent. I said to myself, Janet, you keep your distance from that one. Marcus laughed. So what changed your mind? I saw you with that little girl, the way you looked at her, the way you talked to her, like she was the most important thing in the world. Mrs. Patterson's voice softened. My Harold looked at our children the same way, before he passed. I didn't know you had children. 2 boys, both grown now, one in Detroit, one in Chicago. They call on holidays. She shrugged. They have their own lives. That's how it should be. Do you miss them? Every day. She turned to look at him. That's why I started watching Destiny. Why I started looking after you two. Gave me someone to worry about again. Someone to fuss over. Marcus reached out and took her hand. You've been more than a neighbor to us. You've been family. Hush now. Mrs. Patterson waved her free hand, but her eyes were glistening. Don't go making an old woman cry. I'm serious. When everything fell apart when they arrested me and took Destiny, you were the one who held things together. You cleaned the apartment. You kept the faith. You prayed when I couldn't. That's what family does. That's what I'm saying. Marcus squeezed her hand. You're family. And as long as I'm breathing, you're never going to be alone again. Mrs. Patterson was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick. You're a good man, Marcus Thompson. I knew it the first time I saw you sing that baby to sleep. I knew it. She wiped her eyes. Now stop making me emotional and go get me another piece of that ugly cake. Marcus laughed and went inside. The speaking invitation came in October. A national conference on labor rights being held in Washington, D.C. They wanted Marcus to give the keynote address, to tell his story, to inspire. I don't know, he said to Aaliyah over coffee. She'd become a regular presence in his life, a friend, a colleague, someone who understood the weight of fighting for justice in a world that often didn't want to hear the truth. Standing up at a press conference is one thing. Giving a keynote speech to 1,000 people is something else. You've already given the speech, Aaliyah said, 100 times. Every time you sit down with a worker and listen to their story. Every time you stand up in a meeting and advocate for change. Every time you tell Destiny about doing the right thing. That's different. That's just talking. That's exactly what a speech is. Just talking. Aaliyah leaned forward. Marcus, do you know how many people you've reached? Not just through the news coverage. through the work you've been doing. Workers at Sterling Properties all over the country are speaking up for the first time in their lives because they saw someone like them stand up and survive. Someone like them. A black man, a single father, a janitor. Someone who the system was designed to crush. Aaliyah's eyes were fierce. You didn't just survive, Marcus. You won. And people need to see that. They need to know it's possible. Marcus stared into his coffee cup. His reflection stared back, distorted by the dark liquid. What if I freeze up? What if I forget what to say? Then you speak from the heart. That's all you've ever done. Aaliyah smiled. Besides, you'll have a secret weapon. What's that? Destiny. She's going with you, right? Wild horses couldn't keep her away. Then just imagine you're talking to her, explaining how the world works, telling her what matters. Aaliyah shrugged. You do that every day. Marcus thought about it. Then he nodded. Okay, I'll do it. The conference center was massive. Marcus had never seen so many people in one place. Labor leaders, activists, politicians, journalists, workers from every industry imaginable, all of them packed into an auditorium that seemed to stretch forever. He stood backstage, his heart hammering against his ribs. Destiny sat next to him, swinging her legs, completely unbothered by the enormity of the moment. Daddy, why do you look scared? Because there are a lot of people out there, baby. So, you talk to lots of people on TV. This is different. TV, you just look at a camera. Here I can see their faces. Destiny considered this. Pretend they're all wearing funny hats. What? That's what my teacher says when we have to do presentations. Pretend everyone's wearing funny hats. Then they don't seem so scary. Marcus laughed, despite his nerves. Funny hats, huh? Yeah, like big floppy ones, with flowers. I'll try that. A stagehand appeared. Mr. Thompson, you're on in 2 minutes. Marcus took a deep breath. Then he knelt down in front of Destiny. You gonna watch Daddy up there? Uh-huh. You gonna cheer for me? The loudest. He kissed her forehead. I love you, baby girl. I love you too, Daddy. Now go be a hero. Marcus walked onto the stage. The applause was deafening. 1,000 people on their feet, clapping, cheering. He walked to the podium, gripping the edges to keep his hands from shaking. The noise faded. The lights dimmed. And Marcus began to speak. My name is Marcus Thompson. A year ago, I was a janitor working the night shift at a hotel. I was invisible. Nobody knew my name. Nobody saw my face. I was just the guy who mopped the floors and emptied the trash after everyone else went home. He paused. Then one night I walked into a room where a woman was dying, and without thinking, without hesitating, I dropped to my knees and tried to save her life. He told the story. All of it. The CPR, the accusations, the termination, the smear campaign, the arrest, Destiny being taken away, the long fight to clear his name and expose the truth. The audience was silent, rapt, 1,000 pairs of eyes fixed on him. I'm not here to tell you that the system works. It doesn't. Not for people like me. Not for people like most of you. The system is designed to keep us quiet, to keep us small, to make us believe that our voices don't matter. His voice grew stronger. But here's what I learned: the system is made of people. And people can change. People can be reached. People can be moved to do the right thing even when it's hard, even when it costs them something. I'm standing here today because one person believed me. Then another. Then another. It started with a journalist who listened to my story. It continued with a CEO who chose truth over convenience. It grew into a movement of workers who refused to stay silent anymore. Marcus looked out at the crowd, at the faces. Some young, some old, some tired, some determined. All of them waiting to hear what came next. You want to know what I've learned in the past year? I've learned that change doesn't come from the top. It comes from the bottom, from the people who do the work that nobody sees, from the janitors and the housekeepers and the security guards and the cafeteria workers, from the invisible ones. We're not invisible. We never were. We just let them convince us that we were. He gripped the podium tighter. So here's my message to everyone out there who's ever felt unseen. Everyone who's been told they don't matter. Everyone who's been pushed down and stepped on and made to feel like they don't belong. You belong. You matter. Your voice has power. And when you use it, when you refuse to be silenced, when you stand up for yourself and for each other, there is nothing on this earth that can stop you. He stepped back from the podium. Thank you. The room exploded, people jumping to their feet. Applause rolling like thunder. Someone started chanting his name. Then others joined in. Marcus, Marcus, Marcus. He found destiny in the wings. She was clapping so hard her little hands were red. You did it, Daddy? He scooped her up and held her close. We did it, baby. Together. Later that night, after the speeches were done and the conference had ended, Marcus sat in his hotel room with Destiny asleep beside him. His phone buzzed with messages. Congratulations from Aaliyah, pride from Victoria, love from Mrs. Patterson. But one message stood out, from an unknown number. Mr. Thompson, you don't know me. I'm a housekeeper at a hotel in Detroit. I watched your speech online tonight. For 5 years I've been dealing with harassment from my supervisor. I never said anything because I thought nobody would believe me. Tonight, I filed a complaint. Thank you for giving me courage. Maria. Marcus stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back. Maria, thank you for telling me. You're not alone anymore. If you need anything at all, my office is here to help. Stay strong. Marcus. He set the phone down and looked at Destiny, sleeping peacefully beside him. 1 year ago, he'd been invisible. 1 year ago, he'd had nothing but a mop and a dream of something better. Now he had a daughter who was safe and thriving. A job that mattered. Friends who believed in him. And a voice that reached people he'd never even met. It hadn't been easy. It had been the hardest thing he'd ever done. There were moments when he wanted to give up. Moments when the weight of it all felt too heavy to bear. But he hadn't given up. He'd kept going, kept fighting, kept believing that the truth mattered even when powerful people tried to bury it. And here in this quiet hotel room, watching his daughter breathe, Marcus finally understood something he'd been trying to articulate for months. Being a hero wasn't about grand gestures. It wasn't about saving billionaires or giving speeches to thousands of people. It was about the small choices, the daily decisions to be honest, to be kind, to see the people that others overlooked, to stand up when sitting down was easier. His mother had taught him that. His wife had believed it. And now every day, he was teaching it to Destiny. The cycle continued. The truth passed down. The courage multiplied. Marcus pulled the blanket up over his daughter's shoulders and kissed her forehead. Good night, baby girl, he whispered. Tomorrow we keep going. He turned off the light and lay down beside her. Outside the window, the city glowed. Millions of people going about their lives, some seen, some invisible, all of them mattering more than they knew. Marcus closed his eyes. He had started as a janitor who kissed a billionaire to save her life. He had become something more. Not because he was special, not because he was chosen, but because when the moment came, when he had to decide what kind of man he wanted to be, he chose courage over fear, truth over silence, justice over safety. That choice had changed everything. And somewhere out there, in hotels and hospitals and office buildings and homes, other invisible people were making the same choice. Standing up, speaking out, refusing to be forgotten. The revolution wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was quiet and steady and unstoppable. One voice at a time, one truth at a time, one act of courage at a time. That was how the world changed. That was how heroes were made. And Marcus Thompson, once invisible, now understood the most important truth of all. The people who change the world aren't the ones born with power. They're the ones brave enough to use their voice when everyone expects them to stay silent.